Good evening, it's Laura, Heart of Ukraine Ministries. It is April 7th, it's the 43rd day of the war, and I'm here to give you an update. So let me run down what we've been doing. Animals, it's a big thing right now. The piglets got their first series of shots, one is a mineral and vitamin that helps them be healthy, and the other one is an antibiotic because the umbilical cord is kind of an avenue for germs, and you know, pigs are not that clean, so it's kind of standard procedure that we give. I'm a couple days late in giving it because of, you know, having to hand feed them and all those things around that, just being exhausted. But anyway, we gave them the shots yesterday. Gave them another antibiotic shot today, and we'll do that for 5 days because I did notice that some of the piglets had swollen leg joints, which is a symptom of that main infection that they get when they're young. So kind of kicking myself that I didn't give them the antibiotics earlier. But as I was reviewing my information, I checked online again, and I found that in one of the articles that I read, there's a way to help prevent it even more, and that's by dipping the umbilical cord in iodine when they're 2 days old. And so that helps to, I guess, kind of close off the umbilical cord. It prevents the germs from getting in. So I'm going to be trying that with Miss Dolly's piglets when she delivers on May 2nd. So today we moved a number of the pigs around. We moved Miss Piggy into the boar's room because that's her brother, and they can stay in the same room, but they were squabbling a little bit, and I think they're just getting used to each other, forgetting who each other's are. Then we moved Daisy out of her pen to where Miss Piggy was, and then we moved Dolly into where Daisy was. So that gives me an empty pen on the side where Daisy, or where Dolly used to be, and I can put her piglet box there and get to her as she delivers her babies. So we got all that kind of set up, and we got the mesh around the bottom of the pen, and by doing that we put Lulu and Dolly right next to each other, so the mesh that's already there for Lulu's piglets is now there also for Dolly's, because we didn't have enough of the mesh. The rabbits got ear mite drops in their ears. It's kind of been a consistent problem, and right now we're having a hard time finding those drops. A lot of the vet pharmacies don't have it anymore, so I've been using like a flea spray on the back of their necks, and I did find a gel that I could put in to their ears that deals with parasites and mites and those kind of things. Only about 3 of the rabbits kind of had a problem, not as bad as I've seen it in the past. It usually comes on really, really quick. But we put some powder antibiotics in the ears of the 3 that did have some open sores because of the mites. You know, we had our 20 little chicks that are just over a month old from our eggs in the incubator, but Mark surprised me, and he brought home 30 2-month-old chicks. He told me he had a pretty surprise for me out in the car. He knows how I love the animals, so a lot of the chickens were the black and white, which is my favorite, and a couple of the gray. So we put them in the enclosed coop in the back. We kind of have 2 sections and close them off. And I went ahead and took the 20 of our incubator chicks out there because they're all brand new. They're not going to have a pecking order, you know, and they're going to get along. So they're in that area so the other chickens can see them through the fence and get used to them. And we'll wait till they get big enough and they can defend themselves and run away from the grown chickens. Since it's egg laying season for the poultry, they're getting some extra vitamins in their food for the next month or so. It looks like we've got 2 geese that might be sitting now and 2 turkey ducks. So that's really cool. And we've got 1 chicken that seems to be sitting, so I think I might move her into her own box and see if she'll continue to sit and put some eggs under her. Mark has been doing a lot of different things, but in his little bits here and there, he's gluing together some more of the wood pieces that are forming the screen doors for our outdoor pavilion. They've got the frames up for the windows and the frames for the doors, and now he's just working on the actual door itself. And once he gets all those done, then we'll be able to put up all the screen. And depending on how things go, it was kind of planned in the summer that we'll be putting up the tile around the bottom and painting a lot of the pavilion and trying to get it done. We picked up 2 new clients on Tuesday at our street feeding program. Both of them have been with us before. Sasha was with us the end of last year to the first part of this year, but he just had to do things his way. He became very bossy, kind of aggressive, scolding the other men, caused some conflicts, and we said, you know what, you got to go. And he had come to the feeding once or twice, was drunk a lot, but last week we noticed that he wasn't drunk, and this week he was kind of hanging around, and Mark said, you know, do you want to come back? And he was like, yes. And Mark said, okay, come on. The other one was Dima. He's been with us twice before, only for about 24 hours. So this time he has been with us already. Today was his second full day. So tomorrow's his third day, and he's doing really good. I think he kind of came to the end of himself, and he's really wanting to change. I was listening to him. Each one of the men takes a turn praying throughout the day. Whoever prays that day gets to eat first. And his prayer was really heartfelt, you know, and how he wants to change things, but he knows he's such a sinner and he can't do it by himself. So it was encouraging, and I'm just hoping that he sticks it out. He seems to be almost through the DTs. He's still kind of shaky and losing his balance some, but he's doing a lot better. Okay, so refugees. You know, we had gone around and visited all of them and talked with them. Well, we made phone contacts with them just to see how things were going and ask them if there was anything they needed or, you know, what's going on with them. And we're probably going to be going out tomorrow to visit a few of them because a few of them said that they had a couple needs. Oil, toilet cleaner, fruit, potatoes, one other thing I can't remember. Anyway, we did get a call today from the first family that we met from Chernihiv, and they asked if we had any more eggs because they had shared it with the family, the refugees across the street from Mykolaiv. And so we said, yeah, come on down. And this time it wasn't the 2 young boys. Well, they're probably like 17, 18, 19 maybe. 17 or 18 maybe. Anyway, it was the wife, who she's never been down here before, and the young daughter, who I think she's like 12 or 13. And so the husband, and they came down, and we brought them inside, and the husband was just amazed at how big how big our kitchen is. He was really excited to see it. And the wife talked about some of the pots and pans that we'd given her and how she really likes them. They're the non-stick style. And he wanted a picture with us in our kitchen, which is, it's like, okay, no problem. And then the daughter wanted to see the piglets, so we all went outside, and she oohed and awed at the piglets, and the mom was really happy about that. And then she wanted to see the baby bunnies, so we went back and saw the baby bunnies, and they got to see the baby chicks, all those kind of things, and it turned into a little tour, and it was just a lot of fun to spend time with them. I would ask that you keep them in prayer because the father, the son, and the son's friend are going to be heading back north to Chernihiv to try and get into the city to get her parents, I believe it is, but also their delivery trucks there and to try and get them out. They're taking a bunch of the humanitarian aid that we gave them and some that they were able to buy in Metro. Sugar and some of those kind of things. So just please keep them in prayer as they go up there, and hopefully they'll be able to get up there and return back here. Let's see, the mayor notified me today that there's 2 more refugee families in the village. Well, kind of 3. There's the third one lives in Kiev, but she has a house here from her grandmother or something, but you know, she's decided to flee here. So we're going to be going to visit them tomorrow, taking some food bags, see if they need that. I'll probably put a couple of the bed sets, the sheets and the pillows and stuff in the car just in case somebody needs that. Gardens. Last week we fertilized our onions, garlics, and carrot, which we plant in the fall the year before. And if the weather cooperates, which we're hoping to do tomorrow, Mark is going to go out with kind of this heavy rake behind the tractor and rake our grass and alfalfa fields, and then we're going to go out and throw out seed and then a fertilizer, and then he'll rake it again to kind of work it in. And it's supposed to rain on Saturday and Sunday, so it'd be really good if we can get that done. We're probably going to be turning over the kitchen garden, either by shovel or by the tiller on the back of the tractor, depending on how things work out. And I'm going to start planting our herbs and radishes and those kind of things there. The next big thing for us is planting our beets, and they're yellow and white beets that are for the animals. They'll have some red beets here in the home field, but we use those beets a lot to feed the animals. So one of the things we're trying to do is get a new kind of cedar, or a different kind of cedar, because the cedar that we initially got is really good for grass. It's good for planting corn if you want it to kind of grow like grass, because we do that a lot of times in the late summer. It grows up and we cut it down and then feed it to the animals as green. We try and feed our animals green things as much as possible near the end of the season. So it's just not working well with the beets and the corn, and we've tried it 2 times. So we've found a different kind of feeder that we think, different kind of cedar that we think is going to be exactly what we need. And so now we just kind of have to call around and see if it's available and what the price is going to be. But hopefully we can get that soon, because we really need to get our beets in the ground. After that, we may or may not plant corn. It depends again on if we can get that cedar. Let's see. Potatoes probably be after that, and that's going to be around the 1st of May. Usually kind of there's some holidays there. We may plant a little bit in the home field. Like I said, we're not going to do cauliflower, broccoli, or Brussels sprouts. That just takes a lot of manpower. So we're probably going to plant some here early on and then harvest them earlier. They're called young potatoes here. Okay, news. Global news. The global grain trade is losing about $120 billion worth due to the Russian invasion, because Ukraine and Russia account for 1/4 of the global grain trade. And so the markets are kind of bracing for this shock in shipments that's not going to be coming. And apparently they're already feeling it in some of the countries down in the continent of Africa. In Germany, the German intelligence has intercepted radio messages from the Russian military about the massacre in Bucha, which is on the outskirts of Kiev, which indicate that these crimes were not accidental, but they fit into the usual tactics and in the strategy of the Russian armed forces. So they've been hearing the Russians talking about this. So it was planned. It wasn't, like a mob mentality that took over. Peace talks. Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine says that Russia is not leaving behind its plan to seize the whole territory of Ukraine. It's just going to take it bite by bite, and they're focused on the east right now, and that's why they've kind of let up in the Kiev area. But the ministry is convinced that the Russian Federation is using this moment now to gather strength, to regroup its troops, and to continue the offensive. In Belarus, railway partisans, or people who are protesting, allegedly tried to prevent trains with equipment from Russia forces moving towards Ukraine, and they were shot. Saw a couple pictures of that. The Belarusian department reports that they arrested 4 people who were suspected of destroying relay cabinets and the signaling installation for some of those trains. It is also known that weapons were used against these people, and 2 were injured. One of them is in a hospital, and then a few were killed. But it looks like even some of the Belarusian people are trying to stop this war that's going on. In Georgia, the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia, which is to the right of Ukraine, around the the Azov and Black Sea kind of, and the south of Russia. I'm trying to think of it in my mind here. A rally was held in memory of the victims in Bucha, and the protesters laid down with their hands tied, and they did this in front of the Parliament building, just to show solidarity with Ukraine and to protest the horrible violence that happened. Some things in Ukraine. It's been reported that the Russian unit of electronic warfare was taken out by the Ukrainian airborne air assault forces, which is really good. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in his briefing this morning at 6 o'clock, said the enemy continues to prepare for an offensive operation in the east of Ukraine in order to establish complete control over the entire territory of Donetsk and Lugansk regions. So those are really big, and they didn't have full control over it from what happened in 2015 and 16, and that they want complete control of it. The preparation and movement of units into this occupied area by Russia is underway. It's happening, and the Russians continue to blockade Kharkov, which is kind of a little bit south. Mostly at night, the Russian troops are shelling the city using multiple launch rocket systems, cannon artillery, and mortars. In the Donetsk and Lugansk directions, the main effort of the enemy are focused on military operations in a couple different settlements there and inching their way and controlling the area close to Mariupol. In Kiev, the mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, who's a kind of a famous boxer, he and his brother, he said that Kiev continues to live under martial law. However, more and more cafes, shops, service stations, and other private enterprises are opening. All of the city's life support systems, critical infrastructure enterprises are working, and they're gradually launching more public transportation routes. They are in the midst of repairing the Kiev Chop is actually a city, highway, which the Russian soldiers damaged with missile strikes, so they've begun to repair that. Security Services of Ukraine has already detained 33 collaborators who conspired with the Russian soldiers in Bucha, and 15 marauders were among the locals. So they kind of got caught up and helped the Russians. In addition, almost 2,000 people were interviewed already, and they've collected information and are filing criminal cases right now, especially to those people who were collaborators. In Poltava, which is kind of east of us, but not as far as Kharkov, the armed forces of Ukraine shot down 2 enemy missiles, and the fragments of the missiles damaged some power lines, so there was no electricity in 5 villages, but they're repairing it. But it's better that they were shot down and damaged some power lines than to hit a hospital or a school or residential area. In Mariupol, within the last 24 hours, the Russian army carried out 118 air bombings. They're just pounding that city into the ground. Almost 50 people have been burned alive as the result of the bombardment of a hospital by the Russian troops. According to preliminary estimates, the total number of people who died in the city during the month of this blockade is over 5,000, and 200 of them are children. But they continue to find bodies consistently. So these are just preliminary numbers. In Kherson, which is south, Kharkov, Kherson, I get those two mixed up sometimes. The Russian military has conducted a search going house by house, and there's been reported that they detained a mother of many children, and she was taken away, and they don't know why. This was reported by the Crimean Tatar Resource Center, so it kind of makes me think that maybe she might be a Crimean Tatar or a Muslim, and they are persecuted heavily down in Crimea right now. In Mykolaiv, which is in the south of Ukraine, well, some people are really talking about these secret biolabs that are here in Ukraine, and that's why Russia is bombing so many locations. Well, today I watched this video, and there's supposedly a secret medical facility that was bombed by Russia, but really, in actuality, it's a children's hospital. It had a lab in it for testing blood and urine of the children for diagnosis and treatment. But this is kind of a tactic that Russia is using by calling them biolabs, and that they're creating biological weapons to attack Russia, that it justifies them bombing them. And pretty much a number of them have been children's hospitals. And throughout the day, 3 medical institutions in Mykolaiv were bombed, 5 schools, and up to 10 kindergartens, as well as residential quarters and an orphanage. They all suffered. 10 people died that they know of. 61 people were injured. Again, those are just the first numbers. It's already being planned at the end of the war, because here in Ukraine, we don't really say when the war ends, we say when we win the war. They're already planning a 5-meter high wall, which is 16 foot, to be built on the border with the Russian Federation, as well as a defensive line that will prevent any new possible invasion by Russian troops once they've been repelled out of Ukraine. And this was actually proposed by the head of the Sumy area, which is a state kind of northeast. So Russia. Don't think Russia is a threat to anyone else other than Ukraine. Well, Putin has already threatened to send a nuclear bomb to Europe if NATO gets involved in the war here. Now Russia is threatening Finland because if it's talking about joining NATO. Finland's accession to NATO would make it a target for Russian retaliatory measures. The first deputy head of the International Committee of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation. So basically, Russia is saying that. Excuse my dog, Molly, she's having a dream. The president of Poland is calling for the dismantling of the Russian gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2. He stresses that this gas pipeline really, between Russia and Germany, are political projects, and Russia is blackmailing not only Germany, but essentially the whole of Europe through this gas line, threatening to shut it off, increase the prices, all those kind of things. Now, some of the atrocities that are going on, this might be sensitive, so I'm going to warn you in advance. As people are being able to escape through the green corridors from the worst war-torn areas, more stories and proof of atrocities are coming to light that the Russian soldiers have done. For instance, a 10-year-old girl with horrific vaginal and anal tearing after being brutally raped by several Russian soldiers. 10-year-old girl. More stories of women who are being raped in front of their parents and their own children. Random shooting of people on the street for no reason. Looting of stores, which I've seen a number of videos on. Clearly Russian uniforms. They're just ransacking everything. Videos of Russians moving through residential areas and stealing everything from big screen TVs to refrigerators to toys for children out of houses, out of businesses. Ukraine's Secret Service has released numerous recordings of surveilled phone calls between Russian soldiers and their mothers, wives, or girlfriends back in Russia. And these women are asking the Russian soldiers to steal and bring back specific items. The Russian language is very pure. Even the Ukrainians in the east of Ukraine who speak mainly Russian have a very distinct style of Russian. It's called Syriac, which is actually what kind of we speak. It's kind of a Russian-Ukrainian mix. And so these people making the phone calls, it's like pure Russian, so it's very obvious who they are. And the Secret Service has actually been able to track down the callers, look up their social media, and they've posted the information, kind of fronted them out for what they're calling for to steal, you know, and they're saying, well, find me this and get me that. Just not very, you know, it just the mentality there, you know, and how they've been taught to hate Ukrainians. Anyway, in Mazur, Belarus, they've actually spotted stolen cars that were stolen out of Ukraine by Russians, and they've identified them there in Belarus. They had a big letter V so that they know which unit they belong to and where they're going back to in Russia to make sure that it gets back to their family. This morning, the Russian army fired at civilians in Velhodar, who had come to a location to receive humanitarian aid. As a result of the mortar shelling, 4 are dead and 4 are wounded. And this is in the Donetsk region. So they don't even want people to go get humanitarian aid. The Russian propagandists bear no less responsibility for the atrocities in Ukraine than the military, said the advisor to the head of the president's office. For years, they have nurtured a hatred for Ukraine in the media. Now most Russian viewers want Ukrainian blood, and they won't accept any excuses. Obviously, this isn't all Russians, but this is a majority of the Russians. And again, this goes back to, you know, if you just pull up some Russian news and you watch it with translation, you would be shocked at some of the stuff. So anyway, we'll end it on that. Just continue to keep us all in prayer, keep Ukraine in prayer. The many victims of these savage crimes that are happening here, just a lot of emotional, physical damage that's going on. Even if Ukraine, or when Ukraine repels Russia, I don't want to say if, but when Ukraine repels Russia, it's going to take years and years to recover. The physical stuff is going to be repaired much faster than the emotional stuff. So just pray for Ukraine. pray that people are crying out to the Lord, that we know He's going to meet them where they're at, that He gives them comfort and peace, that He can help them not to let the anger and the hatred build up in their hearts, which only poisons them. There's just a lot to pray for. So anyway, good night. We'll see you another evening.